Yeah, I'm a First Nations carver from Tsleil-Waututh Nation, born and raised on the Burrard Inlet out here. So I've been living here my whole life, and I'm just here to do a piece on at the Vancouver Mural Fest. And the mural here is a thunderbird, and I am a Coast Salish thunderbird. And when I found out the area, that's what I wanted to put up because it represents protection. It protects the people, the neighborhood, homeless, the land, the water, and the colors tied in are part of that. The blue and the greens represent the sea and the land, and the red represents the strength behind it all. And it was important to me to have this up. The yellow is where the happiness comes. A long time ago, we'd paint on our longhouses on the inside and outside so people would know, they would recognize what family you come from.
For your great-grandchildren,
yeah,
what kind of society you want them to live in?
Just in a happy society, you know, where people get along, and then more of looking after our environment for the future uses, protection of the environment, and I hope that all happens for them. We're trying to go the other way. Natural resources, we don't need the pipeline, and it's destroying our water and lands, and it's important to keep our fish alive, so it's very important to us. My people have been living in the Deep Cove area for thousands of years.
First, the Government of Canada has approved the Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain Expansion Project. This pipeline will twin an existing line that has been in operation since 1953, which extends from Edmonton, Alberta to Burnaby, British Columbia. The project will effectively triple our capacity to get Canadian energy resources to international markets beyond the United States.
I'm an environmental engineer. I've been working for 30 years to protect the environment, and I live in Vancouver, Canada. So back in the 1990s, from 1991 till 1996, I worked as an environmental engineer for a company called Trans Mountain Pipeline, which has a pipeline that runs from Edmonton, Alberta, down into Vancouver, British Columbia, and a small section that goes into Washington State to feed the refineries there. And so that pipeline, Trans Mountain Pipeline Company, was purchased by Kinder Morgan a few years ago, a large Texas-based company, and they've been trying to expand that pipeline system.
This is a sacred mountain for our people. In the Fraser River, the headwaters are just on this road or right across from this visitor center where we are at. And this Fraser River, provides tens of thousands of Indigenous people, generations and generations of Indigenous people. Salmon, the lifeblood of our people. We say that the DNA of the salmon is in us as Secwepemc, and we're going to be enjoying a good feast with some salmon that was caught, swam up the Fraser.
So in the Kalamazoo spill, which happened down in the US, 40 kilometers of river were impacted. And if you were to have a spill in the Fraser River, you could have potentially hundreds of kilometers that have been negatively impacted. And that's a massive river for the salmon. So, and you've got populations all the way along the river there as well. There's Hope, and there's Chilliwack, and there's Abbotsford, there's Burnaby, Vancouver. So you have human populations as well that would be negatively impacted. Their health could be quite drastically affected. So there's, in the greater Vancouver area, there's 2 million people, and studies are indicating that at least 1 million people would be sick if there was a major spill here from the marine loading facility, for example.
The salmon is the lifeblood of this beautiful part of Mother Earth of ours. It feeds the whales, it feeds its wolves, it feeds the sails, it feeds the forests. And so we all know this now. And that's why we're here today. That's why we're here today, to say that little prayer in our heart that we can do something. Each and every one of us can do something. No effort is wasted. We need to do it with joy and love in our hearts. And when we do it with joy and love in our hearts, we're going to make a powerful difference, because that means that we're never going to give up on the salmon. If we give salmon a chance, it'll rebound in bountiful numbers. Yes. That's how magical the salmon are. And that's why, because we still have salmon left, let's do everything in our power to make sure that they're restored. Oh great sacred life spirit, we thank you for the beautiful gifts that you have been providing us for thousands of years. We thank you for this beautiful relative of ours who is going to join with the cedar tree to help us make this important step to protect the common biosphere that we have. We make our commitment to you, my dear relative, that we will continue to clean the rivers, we'll continue to do what is necessary for your survival and for your restoring you to higher numbers. Osiam Yakyukwasai. Thank you, great life spirit, sacred life spirit. Osiam. Yeah, that's the next that goes in.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's in perfect time. Soil warm up the roads. Yeah.
other relative we show respect and acknowledge, the fir tree, those three. That's what the power of our cedar tree does, along with all the other rooted ones in our territory here. They're the ones who provide us with the oxygen that we breathe. They're the ones that absorb the carbon from the atmosphere. And the water and the salmon and the cedar are so connected. They are the life force of this beautiful, beautiful part of Mother Earth of ours. And so we're so happy that we are now acknowledging the significance, the great significance, and the great value that the clean waters and the salmon and the cedar have to each and every one of us. Each and every one of us. I'm so happy to see the young ones here. The young ones, this is all about the future of our young ones as well. So when we do this work together as one, to send our love and our gratitude and our respect to all those who provide us with a beautiful, beautiful life that we can experience here. It's a really good feeling to put our collective prayers together as one. Let's Amat, let's Atala, one mind, one heart. We're all in this together. Nobody isn't a stakeholder in what needs to be done to curb climate change. So good to see many of you who have participated in the climate strikes, the climate action, to try to get governments and corporations to take a turn and move away from the fossil fuels and go towards clean energy.
You know, the orca whale saved my people. There is down in Tulalip, our people were starving. We're having a bad year with everything. Our people are starving, dehydrated. And then we went to pray for the food, right? We prayed. We're really starving, having one of our hardest years. Really struggling our people were. And so the orca whale and its pods in the Puget Sound and the Salish Sea came together. And they scared all the salmon into the bay, Tulalip Bay, the Tulalip Bay. And the orca whale saved our people. The coco hage, the blackfish, saved our people.
There's a number of different things that could happen depending on when the spill occurs. So if the salmon are coming back to spawn to lay their eggs, those adult salmon could be killed if the oil spill occurs when they're swimming back up the river. But even if the spill were to occur at a different time of the year, if oil covers their spawning areas, the sand and gravel that they spawn in, they could come back year after year and those eggs would be killed. So there can be impacts that happen immediately as well as for decades afterward.
Hundreds of years later, due to pollution, due to tankers, the noise, traffic, due to human error, the orcas are dying. Due to their food going away and getting extinct, the orcas are dying. Our land is dying. So now today, it is our turn to save those orca whales. It is our turn to save those fish. It's our turn to bring that fish back and that salmon back. My dear elder right here said, how we're related? And he said, we're related through the salmon because it comes all the way up here. And down there, the same salmon feeds our people as up here. That's why we come and fight together.
We will. We won't stop until we win. We won't stop until we win.
And in the province of British Columbia, injunctions are commonly used to intimidate and suppress public opposition to their efforts. Whether it's people protesting housing issues and a lack of housing for people in the city, or whether it's a union that is trying to improve conditions for its workers and going out on strike. Injunctions are a tool to be used by corporations and the government to stifle or stop opposition.
Starting as it enters into our territory up near the BC-Alberta border. That's our land. We've never given consent for this pipeline to pass, to cross over the Fraser River like 5 times. They have 3 man camps proposed, one in Valemount, one in Blue River, and one in Clearwater, to house up to 1,000 men. And like my brother said, these 1,000 men, what it brings to Indigenous women, you know, it brings that violence, it brings murdered or missing Indigenous women. And that's not what we want. We want to continue to keep our women safe. Our women need to be safe in our homelands.
So there's 2 things that can happen: the toxicity from the chemicals themselves, as well as the physical components of it. So if you imagine oil covering the rocks where they try to hide those eggs, both of those things could negatively impact them, but the toxicity would probably be the most detrimental impact on them.
I'm standing here with other Secwepemc, our community, and I wanted to just, pass this on, but my name is Kanahus Manuel, Kanahus Beshki. It means red woman, and I'm from the Secwepemc and the Tanaka Nation, and we're building tiny houses. We committed to building 10 tiny houses to put in the path of the Trans Mountain Pipeline, so this is one of them. And we moved from the man camp area today.
Kinder Morgan were to expand the tank farm as they have proposed to, the tank that would be closest to Forest Grove Elementary School would only be about 300 meters away from the school. And so you can imagine that the staff and teachers in that school would have the same sort of decision making. There would be a terrible smell of hydrocarbon, volatile toxic hydrocarbon vapor, hydrocarbon in the air outside. And so do you keep the children in the school, or do you try to evacuate? And if you try to evacuate and you start the engines of cars, those are ignition sources. And so you can actually contribute to increasing the chances that, hastening a fire. So it's a very, very bad scenario. I think the bottom line on the tank farm is that it's not the sort of thing that belongs in a city.
As Indigenous peoples, in land exploitation, there's a variety of problems, and we oftentimes, 9 out of 10 times, are the first ones affected. We all represent our communities, and this is what's happening to our individual communities. Take a look. This is our plight. This is our problem. Canada needs to know. Everybody needs to know. Because the death of our land is the death of our people. The death of our land. The death of our people. The death of our land. The death of our people. The death of our land. The death of our people. The death of our land.
I just want to talk quickly about the impacts that we've seen to our homelands, both over the last number of years within my lifetime, but also an oil spill that we've experienced back home. I remember going out actually on horse and wagon with my kukum and musum as a young child, and in the 80s, and I remember how beautiful the land was. It was so beautiful. And as I got older, and as I became more aware of what was happening, seeing the impacts and how much the land has changed is heartbreaking. Seeing the inability for our families to drink the water, to breathe the air.
So again, if we look at what happened in Alaska, there's still oil there, and that was a spill from back in the 80s. So decades can go by with the environment being contaminated. So in the Kalamazoo spill, which happened down in the US, 40 kilometers of river were impacted. And if you were to have a spill in the Fraser River, you could have potentially hundreds of kilometers that have been negatively impacted. And that's a massive river for the salmon. So, and you've got populations all the way along the river there as well. There's Hope, and there's Chilliwack, and there's Abbotsford, there's Burnaby, Vancouver. So you have human populations as well that would be negatively impacted. Their health could be quite drastically affected. So there's, in the greater Vancouver area, there's 2 million people, and studies are indicating that at least 1 million people would be sick if there was a major spill here from the marine loading facility, for example.